Hello students and friends. In this video I am going to talk about the feasibility of a redox reaction in which many students have a problem, and this particular question I have taken from the Pearson and Excel International Advanced Level Exam from the paper WCH 1601, but it is of general applicability to all students of A level and also the students of IPDP. So here goes the question. The redox equation for the reaction between the copper 2 ions and the iodide ions is given below. As you can see that this is the equation for the reaction in which the copper ions are supposed to be oxidizing the iodide ions to iodine, and the Cu2 plus ions are getting reduced to the Cu plus 1 ions, and the standard electrode potentials for the half equations are given below. As you can see that the for the copper it is the E naught is plus 0.15 volts, and for the iodine it is plus 0.54 volts. And students have to actually understand that whenever the standard electrode potentials are mentioned, according to the convention, they are always written in the form of a reduction reaction. As you can see that in both the reactions the electrons are added, which shows that these are in fact the reactions showing reduction, but in reality either oxidation or reduction can take place depending upon the relative values of the standard electrode potential. And that's where the problem lies, that how we are supposed to find out the E naught cell. So use the electrode potential data to explain why the redox reaction might not be expected to be feasible. So you can see here that I have written the reaction once again, and if you see here, the iodide ions are getting oxidized to iodine, and the Cu2 plus ions are getting reduced to Cu plus 1. And you must remember this, that in an electrochemical cell the reduction takes place at the cathode and oxidation takes place at the anode. So in fact, when you find out the E naught cell, you must use this formula: E naught cathode minus E naught anode. And this E naught indicates the standard conditions, and you must do the cathode minus anode. The problem that happens with most of the students is that they don't realize that if they subtract the lower value from the higher value, that is 0.54 minus 0.15, then they will always get a positive answer, which means that the reaction will always be feasible. But that cannot be the case. Otherwise this question would not be asked, that whether the reaction is feasible or not. So remember that in order to find out whether the reaction is feasible or not, you must take the anode electrode potential and subtract it from the cathode electrode potential. In this case, the cathode is the copper electrode and the anode is supposed to be the iodine electrode. So when you use that formula, you get 0.15 minus 0.54, that is copper minus iodine, that is this copper minus the iodine, that is the cathode minus the anode, and now you get a negative answer, which means that this reaction is actually not feasible. Because when the E naught cell is positive, then the reaction is feasible, but if it is negative, then it is not feasible. Now further it says that then why the redox reaction in fact takes place. So now that's the confusion. Why does it really take place? For that, you must understand that probably the standard conditions are not being fulfilled, because this value is for standard conditions. So now why the standard conditions are not fulfilled? Because If you look at this reaction once again, then you will find that the copper 1 iodide, which is formed over here, is a solid, and the solid is always thrown out of the equilibrium system and it gets separated, and thereby it shifts the equilibrium to the right because it gets settled at the bottom, shifting the equilibrium to the right side, which actually drives this reaction forward. And in fact, in terms of the concentrations, the concentration of the Cu plus 1 ions in the solution will be reduced because they will form a solid, and that means the standard conditions are not being followed, and hence the reaction becomes feasible because of the equilibrium shifting towards the right, which is due to the formation of a solid. I think that answers the question and hope you have understood. And if you like the video, please give it a like and give your comments and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching.